to another part 2 of a very special recording of the BeXtraG podcast, the podcast where pop culture and nerd culture is insignificant to the power of the Force itself. I am one of your hosts, Bretton Bestwick, alongside my co-host, a scruffy-looking nerf herder, if ever there was one.
Yes, indeed.
Greg Filson. Greg, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to jump back into the Star Wars universe and take my lightsaber and just start destroying all my minions. Got rid of the younglings. That's what I meant. Younglings, sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm sorry. I know why I said
well,
minions.
You know what? Who needs younglings?
I'm tired. Finally have a day off.
Yeah.
So.
It is Festivus.
It is Festivus.
This evening, so I hope you appreciated your feats of strength.
Sure.
As you gathered around the aluminum pole.
Strength to weight ratio.
Yeah. So part 1 is available on. It became available on December 22nd, Tuesday. This is part 2. In part 1, we covered Phantom Menace through Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. So tonight we're going to be tackling the original trilogy, and then as well as the sequel trilogy. So we're going to be getting into those. We've got listener questions, or listener submissions with commentary, some rankings. We're going to do our final rankings at the end, so we'll get to that. But
Mark Hamill might appear.
He digitally de-aged, of course. He might show up and ask you if you've seen anything good lately. But yeah, I think I had a lot of fun with part 1, and I think the people who've listened to it have enjoyed it. So we'll have just as much fun in part 2.
Yeah, I'm pumped.
Plus, we got the bleep working.
Yeah.
In part 1, so that was exciting.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get into it. We'll just go right into it, and we're doing these chronologically. So the next one is Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, and this is, of course, the movie that started it all way back in the 70s. As we did we kind of discussed the principal characters in each movie, and then we fleshed out the story from there. So the main characters in this are Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, Han Solo, Chewie, Chewbacca, Darth Vader, Grand Moff Tarkin, and then 3PO and R2 are really more main characters in this than they are in the prequels and the sequels. So this takes place literally right after the end of Rogue One, in terms of how the story progressed. We see the Death Star plans, and Leia sends them down to Tatooine inside of R2. They're found by some Jawas purchased by Luke Skywalker's moisture farm. Eventually, he delivers them to Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan says, "You must come with me to Alderaan." As we find out, Alderaan's been destroyed by the Death Star. They rescue Leia. They make they attack the Death Star with the plans intact to make the trench run and ultimately destroy the Death Star. Obviously, there's quite a bit that goes into the film but those are sort of the main plot points, beat by beat.
It's incredible. I mean, I'm not saying anything new. It's what's cool to me about this is that if you've seen the original version, not the digitally remastered, and it's hard to see that unless you have a VHS and you have like the original thing. It's just how ahead of its time it was. And when you see it digitally remastered, it actually looks worse. So like visually is where I like begin with this movie, because I remember seeing it as a kid and I was just like, holy cow. Having no idea it was made in the 70s. You just see it. You're just like, you're watching it like, this is an incredible movie. It's it's serious. It has its little bits of levity and things like that, as Star Wars movies always kind of do, but it's not too much. It's not too much, and it's one of the great like build-ups to like any trilogy ever. It might be the best. I mean, I don't know if it's there's a couple out there, but it's certainly one of the top three.
The best trilogy?
Best part ones of a trilogy.
Chapter. Yeah, sure.
Best part ones of a trilogy ever, which I love. I think the way they actually build the characters in the first movie is pretty incredible. When it's, George Lucas was just kind of maybe, like, oh, maybe this will work. I mean, he had no idea this was going to really turn into something. He just kind of was like, I'm going to do this Star Wars movie. maybe people will like it, and then people like loved it. I think his best bet was probably like maybe it turns into a cult classic.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I had the VHS set. Now, this wasn't the special edition set. It was the THC or THX remastered versions, and each one of them had an interview with George Lucas before the movie started. And that was one of the things that he said specifically about A New Hope was, it did well at the box office the first week. And the studio people were calling him and saying, man, it's doing great, it's doing great. And he was even like, listen, all science fiction movies do well in the first weekend. Let's see how it does on the third weekend. And from there, it just kind of became this phenomenon. But I do think that if you really look at the blueprint for A New Hope, he kind of knew there wasn't going to be sequels guaranteed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It left a lot open that if you really wanted to, you could have assumed that when Han came in with the Falcon at the end and blasted Vader's TIE fighter, that took Vader out.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they necessarily counted on this being a trilogy, and this was just to be, one thing. I will say, I think, like you said, this is kind of the perfect introduction to all these characters, where it just kind of shows you where they're at and what they're about, gives you a little bit of a glimpse into all of them. But I think that, I'm going to be honest with you, when I watch A New Hope now, I fall asleep almost every time. I don't know what it is. It just knocks me out. It's probably because I've seen it so many times.
It happens with me with a lot of the original ones is I do fall asleep too because I've seen them so many times. I'm just like, well, I know what happens.
Yeah.
And usually I end up watching them late at night because it's weird.
Right.
It's like I think a lot of people do the same thing. You usually watch a movie you've seen a lot before you go to bed if you're like trying to get tired because you're just like, well, if I miss it, I'm not actually missing anything. But I still I don't know. And when we get to our rankings, I'll show how much I like it. But it's one of those things where it's so well done. It looks super cool. If you see it in its original, if you see it digitally remastered, it still looks cool. I mean, I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, it looks terrible. They ruined it. I'm not that person. But to be made when it was, and to just be as innovative, and I mean, this is the reason why other space opera movies exist.
Yeah, sure.
Which is very cool.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think there's a whole... And we kind of talked about this when we were planning these episodes, is I don't think there's a whole lot to say.
No, it's really good, and you haven't seen it, just go see it. I mean...
If you haven't seen A New Hope and you're listening to this, then you're friends with one of us.
Right, exactly. Which is weird, because I don't know how you could be friends with one of us if you haven't seen Star Wars either.
Yeah. But
I will...
There's not a whole lot to say about this, but... Go ahead.
Oh, the one thing I will say, if you have a kid or something, I don't have kids, but you have kids. If you show them this, and I just imagine, if kids see A New Hope for the first time, that's gonna be so cool. It's been 30 years since I've seen it for the first time. I can't imagine being a kid and seeing it for the first time, which is everything. I mean, with R2-D2 and C-3PO and Darth Vader being scary, but not. It's not like a horror movie scary,
yeah, right.
And it's just there's cool characters in it. I just can't even imagine. I always, when I hear someone hasn't seen something like this, it's like, oh man, I wish I were you so I could see this for the first time again and relive that trilogy.
I think, well, my son, he's 5 and he's watched A New Hope. Oh man, I don't know, probably 10 times, and he just likes R2.
Sure,
he loves R2, and they call Darth Vader Lord Mater, and that's a whole thing, and he has a Build-A-Bear that's a Darth Vader Build-A-Bear or whatever, and it does the breathing when you press its bar. But he's not to where he understands the plot.
Oh,
you know what I mean? He's just not old enough. Right. But that is one of the things that for us, even by the time we were cognizant enough to watch these movies and understand them, there's no such thing as everybody knows about Luke, I am your father,
right?
You know what I mean? But imagine seeing that for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, just
you know what I mean.
Imagine just seeing a lightsaber. Yeah, I mean, for the first time when you see that happen, you're like, oh, that's cool.
I do think that this particular movie is kind of slow at some points as opposed to some of the other ones, but it serves the story to kind of build out, what Luke and Leia's relationship is and what Han and Leia's relationship is going to be And
I mean, this is just much more of
sort of thing.
This whole movie is a setup.
Yeah, sure.
Which he doesn't, even though it can end, like you said, it maybe, there was maybe a point where, George Lucas thought this was, but if it wasn't, it perfectly set up everything. And if
Right.
it was just a one movie, then, I think for a lot of people, it was a very like cool sci-fi movie that kind of changed sci-fi movies.
Right. So, I mean, I don't have a ton to say about A New Hope other than I can't think of any like bad parts or corny parts or anything like that. So we might as well let's take a few comments here from the listeners about A New Hope. Dan M wrote in and said that he likes New Hope and The Force Awakens because they're the same movie. That's,
I mean,
fair.
They are and they aren't.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, but
yeah. Savannah W writes in and says A New Hope is a movie that I've seen very often, and it just gives me the warm and fuzzies. And Jared L just remarked that it's a great movie. Yeah, I mean, I don't like the issue with trying to build a podcast episode around the original trilogies is difficult because there's so much that's already been said. It's not like we're saying anything new,
right?
And they're pretty much universally loved. So, I mean, you can maybe get into, there's probably some hairs to be split, but I don't know that we need to split them.
The only thing I would say, I just have one question going, because my mom was like, hey, I've listened to every episode. I'm not going to listen to the Star Wars episodes.
Sure.
Wait, she goes, I'll download them so you get them, because I tell her to do that.
Sure.
Is your mom a Star Wars person?
She watched the originals and she was excited for the Phantom Menace, and went to see that with my dad and I, but she never saw any of the rest of them after that.
Okay. I think my mom saw the originals, but she's just like, she's not really super into sci-fi.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think like the age range. My mom was like basically already pretty much an adult before these movies came out.
Yeah.
And so it would kind of like maybe passed her by as far as like, the age demographic that this was probably targeting a little bit. But, yeah, not so much.
Okay. I just figured I want to just throw that in there because I knew my mom wouldn't listen.
She's also not a podcast fan. So.
My mom, this is the only podcast my mom listens to, so.
Well, my mom still doesn't know what a podcast is. So.
We need to find her a postal service podcast.
Pull
not
in.
about the band, but.
Or about the band. There's probably one out there. The next movie is episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. And the main characters there is you kind of take Obi-Wan off the table and replace him with Yoda. You get Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, Vader, 3PO, and R2. And then this movie adds in Lando Calrissian, Boba Fett, and you get a wee little bit of the Emperor.
Yeah.
Here, I can't really think of any other main characters. Let's see here. So we start off on Hoth. This is after the Death Star's been destroyed. The rebels are in hiding. They're not doing a touchdown dance, but
not dancing on the logo.
They're in hiding. They're being hunted by the Empire. They're on this isolated ice planet. They get located by this probe droid. The Empire finds them and destroys the base. Leia gets separated from the rest of the Rebel Alliance, and Chewie and Han have to get her out on the Falcon with 3PO, and their misadventures it goes from bad to worse for them. Luke, meanwhile, takes off away from the fleet to Dagobah, where he is trained in the Jedi arts by Yoda. Eventually, Han and Chewie need to stop for repairs. They stop at Cloud City, which is run by Lando. And shortly before they arrived, Vader and the Empire arrived with Boba Fett. And they made a deal that Boba Fett would get Han in exchange for Leia, basically. And the issue was they were using this as a trap to lure Luke there so that Luke could have that iconic confrontation with Vader, where he finds out that Darth Vader is his father. Han's frozen in carbonite, taken away by Boba Fett. Luke gets his hand cut off, reunites with the fleet with Leia and Chewie, and Lando. Although they're not keen on Lando at this point. They still don't really trust him.
And they shouldn't.
There's some great... No, I mean, he is what he is.
Yeah.
He's a scoundrel, as it were. Yeah, I mean, I think that this is pretty much a perfect science fiction movie in every way.
Yeah, it's my favorite science fiction movie ever. It's one of my favorite movies ever. It's the Star Wars I've seen the most easily. I think it's easily because, like, if I'm just like, oh, I need to watch something Star Wars, put this on because it's incredible. It's so good. It's like, I mean, it probably could have won. It probably should have won Best Picture. I think if you go back, but there's just movies like this are not going to win. It's like 1980, and I forget. I think Raging Bull was nominated, and then what's the 1980s Oscars? But I mean, it could have been.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it's that good of a movie, and if no one's ever seen Star Wars and they just watched this movie, it has all the iconic things you think about. You think about Han Solo being frozen. I mean, like, that turns into a thing. Like, you can get an ice tray that's Han Solo. I mean, that's cool. You have Luke's hand getting cut off.
Right.
I mean, it's just, he finds out his father. I mean, this is like the quintessential movie of this entire series of all the movies. To me, it's the best one. Not to give away. I mean, I don't think I'm giving away anything. I would be amazed if someone. I would be amazed if anyone.
Spoilers.
I would be amazed if someone thought this isn't the best one, because I would like to know why. That would be my biggest thing. I don't know your top 10, but I'm just saying, like, and because
right.
I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't know what you could, unless you just think A New Hope's the best one because you think it started it all, and that's your reason. But
yeah,
that'd be like saying Batman Begins is the best of those 3 Batman movies, to me.
Yeah, that's not a thing.
Right.
Raging Bull.
Okay. Yeah.
Robert De Niro won Best Actor. I have it up.
Yeah.
Best Picture. It was not It was not even nominated.
No.
Ordinary People.
Ordinary People. Good movie. It's
Picture.
not Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, but like you said, they don't.
Sci-fi movies just don't get
Oscars for Best Achievement in Visual Effects and Best Sound. So, I know they used a lot of like stop motion on this particular film as far as the effects went. Yeah, I mean, going back to those interviews with Leonard Maltin and George Lucas on those VHSs that I had, he said that he kind of structured these almost like a 3-act play. And in the second act it has to be dark, which Empire is one of the darkest, if not the darkest, maybe outside of Rogue One, but Star Wars movie. And he said your objective is to put your heroes in a situation that they can't possibly overcome. And then in the third act, they overcome it. So this is sort of, I think, that screenwriter that we talk about in the first episode that we talked about, that he's a great screenwriter. Right. Not so much a great director, but the original trilogy and Empire in particular are just so well written. Yeah. From a scripting or from a story point of view, it just doesn't make sense to me that the same guy who wrote A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi is the same guy that wrote Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. It just doesn't make sense to me.
It's what happens it's one of those things where, like, it's cream, man. Cash rolls everything around me. That's what happens. He got so into, like, I need to just make. I don't know if he was like had some gambling problems. Who knows? I don't know, but like, it is incredible, especially if you like when you do something like this where you rewatch everything again and you're like, this was all the same person, and like these were all the and it's weird to me where it's like it's weird to me that he did those 6 movies, but it's weird to me like that people like who aren't part of that original group, but then like love those movies, go a direction that doesn't seem right either, though. That's kind of that boggles my mind. This
might be incorrect, but I'm pretty sure that he said in that interview series that he had episodes 1, 2, and 3 written before 4, 5, and 6.
Oh yeah, I think I've actually read that before.
It's so
yeah, I think I've actually
like. Did he just get lucky? I mean, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense because it can't be. It can happen with like one movie, or like we even talked about it on the regular episode yesterday with CD Projekt Red, and they made The Witcher 3, and that game's incredible, and their new game has sold very well, but it is by all accounts a dumpster fire. And so I think you can get lucky once. Can you get lucky 3 times?
Is it 3 times, or is it just one collective idea? I think maybe that might be the thing. It might just be one collective idea where he has the beginning, middle, and end, and that just happened to work out. And
yeah, maybe,
because and we'll get to it. But in the new trilogy, the first one is fine,
right?
But yeah, I mean, I think it's more of that than anything. I think it's more that it was just I don't know. I mean, like, I just, when I think of the Phantom Menace, I just cringe. So it's, it is weird that he just did that. And I guess if you think, here's my thing. Maybe it's just, when he says written, that can also mean something different. Like, yeah, sure. If you just told me the, like, hits of Phantom Menace, or the first 3. One through 3, on paper, just say, this is what happens. You get the...
On paper, the Phantom Menace sounds great.
If you just say, you get the Darth Vader storyline. Yeah. Count me in. Like, it's just like, okay, that sounds really good. If that's all I see, but then you see it, and you're like, oh, okay. I got a lot of nothing here. But
the story of the first 3 or the prequel movies, maybe not so much Attack of the Clones, but Phantom Menace story on paper looks great, and the Revenge of the Sith on paper looks great. It's just the execution, and I wonder how much of it is that he focused on so much of, because he didn't have a lot of the tools available. Like I said, Empire Strikes Back, they did a lot of stop motion effects, especially for like the AT-AT walkers, and some of the things on Dagobah, they're not like as wild as it sounds. They're like not super heavy effect movies. No. Despite being sci-fi movies, but you wonder how much of it with the prequels it was that he just had all these new toys to play with, and he just felt like he had to do that. He had to do the CGI. He had to do, because there's in the first 2 prequels, Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, there's these huge battle scenes. Outside of Hoth, you really don't get that.
Right.
Like, on foot battle. I mean, you get obviously the space dogfighting, starship fights, but you don't get these huge battle things. Even with Return of the Jedi and on the moon of Endor, it's small, it's contained, it's not over the top. And I think it was like so much of, well, we have this technology, we have to use it. And so I almost feel like the prequels, because as we've said, on paper, they look great, but maybe if he would have exercised a little bit of restraint with using a lot of that new technology, maybe they turn out much, much differently.
It's the idea of less is more.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what 100%. It is. Yeah. And he had too many tools in the shed, and he wanted to use all of them, and you don't need to use everything to build a table.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. So what's your thoughts on, we kind of covered the characters. We didn't really go into depth with them. So I'm actually going to backtrack a little bit to A New Hope here. Luke and Leia, they don't know they're twins at this point. Luke is a teenager. He meets up with Obi-Wan, who's this older gentleman. This is the issue that I have with, and we kind of talked about this a little bit. Well, we talked about R2 having improved technology in the prequels. But the whole concept of R2 being so heavily involved, and Obi-Wan just like, I don't seem to remember ever owning a droid. Like, it's almost like they kind of retcon that to make him like he was just being a smartass.
Right.
But I don't know. It just kind of, it doesn't really jive with me how they had to pack the droids into the prequels. I know we've already covered them and everything, but some of these relationships that we see in A New Hope have already been established. Han and Chewie, Vader and Tarkin, all these different relationships. Do you have any commentary on just any of the characters specifically for A New Hope, or any of the relationships or anything like that?
I mean,
and then I guess same question for Empire.
The Luke and Leia thing is just so funny after you've seen it once. You've seen the trilogy once.
Yeah.
And then you go back, you're like, ooh.
Right.
Like, ooh. You know. And so it's just fun.
Which is creepier? Luke or Leia French kissing Luke in Empire, or just in general how Natalie Portman acts towards Jake Lloyd in Phantom Menace?
Natalie Portman is still creepier because, like, it's
Yeah.
just that is just so odd. This one, like, they have no like you. It, like, I mean, you just have no idea. And,
Right.
you know, I mean, Carrie Fisher's smoke show back then, I too would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I was. So it's just like one of those things where it's like, I don't blame Luke at all because you don't know. I mean, the Force can only do so much. It doesn't necessarily give you that information. So.
Right.
That was.
Well, eventually it does.
It does eventually,
Yeah,
but
that's the thing.
right. But in this particular instance, it does not.
Right.
And you know, I think going with like Han and Chewie being friends is just cool. I like I'm not saying anything new. Like we said, we're not going to say anything new with this. Darth Vader's relationships with anyone is just always kind of funny to me.
Yeah.
And it has nothing. It's just based on those movies and not like any of the movies that came after it. Your Lies, but it's just like the whole idea. He's just like this extreme badass. And then it's like, everyone's like, well, I sort of trust him. And it's like, you should think about trusting him as far as you can throw him, and he's a big robot.
He's a bigger guy.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
Here's my thing. He says when they're discussing using the Death Star to destroy a planet, he says that the ability to destroy a planet is insignificant compared to the power of the Force. I think he maybe overshot it.
Yeah.
Overshot that one
Yeah.
a little bit. Because, I mean, he went in with the Force and tried to, no pun intended, but or maybe pun highly intended, but force Leia into giving some information, and she didn't talk until they said, all right, we're gonna blow up your planet. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
So I think maybe he overestimates his, he's a little bit, maybe a little bit too headstrong and cocksure.
It could be the fact that, like, since he's on the dark side, maybe if he was on, so if he's Luke, I mean, maybe the Force with Luke is just so strong. It is actually more important to me to being able to blow up a planet, destroy a planet.
Right.
Maybe it is, but because there's that slight shortcoming of being on the dark side that he thinks that he can overcome because he's who he is, but there's a reason why he turns out the way he does, because he succumbs to it. And
second piece of commentary, Obi-Wan says, if you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. I mean, he just turned into laundry.
he did.
So again, I think maybe these guys are
They just really love the Force.
tad bit too full of themselves.
They're very
Maybe that's
forceful.
oh boy. Empire introduces us to Lando Calrissian, Billy D. Williams, and then also Boba Fett. We get a little bit of Boba Fett, a man of a few words. And then, I think, like you said, Carrie Fisher back then was a smoke show. Everybody always talks about the slave Leia outfit from Jedi. I actually think she looks best in Empire.
Oh,
There's just something about
yeah,
her.
there is just a joie de vivre about, because I actually think the
I
same.
don't speak Spanish.
I feel the same way, and it's one of those. It is one of those moments when you're like a little kid and you see her and she's so pretty in that movie.
Yeah.
But it's also a nerdy movie, and you're like, that's who I'm gonna marry. Like, you just have that in your head when you're like 7 or 8 and you see this and you're like, she's so pretty and she's in space.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah, both of those things. She is the only woman of consequence in any of these movies.
yeah.
In any of the original,
Right,
the original
yeah.
3.
I mean, that's all movies from that era, though. They're like, how many movies where women
Yeah,
were
that's true.
super important? It's sort of, just the way movies
That's
were
true.
made, which is not great, but how it was.
Yeah. What do you think about this? Is the first time we get Yoda? Frank Oz. He's a puppet.
Frank Oz
He was
isn't a puppet,
suggested-
but Yoda is.
Frank Oz is not a puppet, right? Yoda is a puppet. Frank Oz was suggested to George Lucas by Jim Henson.
Yeah.
And Frank Oz has done a lot of like Muppets and things like that. But what do you think about Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back?
I'm not gonna try to do Yoda verbiage or anything. It's just really cool.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's one of those things where, like, you know, because the Yoda that's reintroduced with everything else after this, I don't like as much because they try to just ham it up. But when you get to see when you get to see OG Yoda, it's so cool. It is just, and I feel it, like, I still feel the same way about it every single time he comes on screen. Every time I see that movie and here's Yoda coming up and you're like, oh dang, like maybe I've been desaturized, and then you realize you're not. You're like, man, OG Yoda, what a dude.
Yeah.
What an absolute force. It is great though. I do love Yoda. It's so refreshing every single time.
I saw, and this is more of a Jedi thing because it happens in Return of the Jedi. But I'm not sure if I sent you this meme or not. I'm gonna read it. I can't remember if I sent this to you.
I love anything original Yoda.
That was remember or having kids. There you go. Having kids. Once I became a parent, I finally understood the scene in Return of the Jedi where Yoda gets so tired of answering Luke's questions that he just dies.
Oh yeah, she did.
That's how I've kind of felt these last few days.
Good.
Yeah. So all right. Well, let's get into Jedi then. You have Yoda, Luke, Han, Leia, Chewie, Vader, 3PO, R2, Lando, Boba Fett, and then at the beginning you get obviously the iconic scenes. From Jabba's palace with Jabba and Bib Fortuna, his little henchman, who showed up at the very end of The Mandalorian. I'll tell you what, man, at the end of The Mandalorian, Bib looked like he'd put on a few pounds.
He did. Yeah, he definitely did.
Like maybe he went out to the Tatooine desert and found Jabba's charred up body and was just eating it like aged brisket for the last 5 years.
A lot of fat on that, so.
That's what I'm saying.
Cooked down. It maybe made some like barbacoa, little tacos. I don't know.
Maybe a little bit of Frank's.
Possibly. He ate a lot. Whatever he did, he ate a lot of it.
He did eat a lot of it. So, as I stated, the movie starts on Tatooine with Jabba's palace, and Boba Fett has handed over Han Solo frozen in carbonite, which Jabba is at this point using as a wall decoration. 3PO and R2 arrive. Leia and Lando is infiltrated at this point, but Leia shows up disguised as a bounty hunter. She shows up with Chewie, hands him over in an attempt to free Han. They catch them all. She's put into that iron bikini. Luke shows up, tries to pull some Jedi stuff. Jabba doesn't go for it. He kills the Rancor in the Rancor pit. They take him out to the Sarlacc pit. They're gonna shove him in the Sarlacc pit. Luke is able to take out everybody. Boba Fett goes out like a bitch, which is rectified in Mandalorian season 2. And then they plan the final assault on the new Death Star. Han leads a strike team on the planet's surface. Luke goes up to the Death Star to confront Vader and Emperor Palpatine. We get more of Palpatine. I failed to mention him. He confronts Vader and Palpatine. Lando and the Falcon leads an attack on the Death Star. I mean, it's pretty by the numbers, but you know, it's we get how did I forget the Ewoks too?
Oh yeah,
I forgot the Ewoks when I was writing this up.
Yeah,
but they run into the Ewoks down there. The baby Wookiees basically. They're like 3 of them are the size of Chewie, but yeah, I mean, so Return of the Jedi, obviously number 3 in this series. What do you have to say about Return of the Jedi?
I mean, it's so good. It's so really good. The only thing is you kind of know, I mean, you just know, especially when you're our age, like you know that the Jedi are going to win. Like you know that the good side's going to win, so there's the sort of disappointment in... And not to say you're rooting against them, it's just you kind of know how this is going to end up, which is always just my issue, and it's always kind of building up. We're like, are they gonna? And it's like, well, yeah, they are, because it's the third one in a trilogy, and it's just, I mean, and I get that. It's still a really cool movie. To me, it's actually like the one thing I do love. We get Force lightning in this movie, which I think is pretty cool. Palpatine doing that. I like Palpatine as a character because he's just weird.
I like him to a point.
Right. Yeah. it's to me, it's the most like because you can't end with Empire. You can't end with Empire, but to me, it's the biggest letdown. When you said you'd fall asleep during A New Hope, this is one that this is the movie that I put on if I'm like doing like a baking thing, or I like to have as background noise because I don't think it's you're not missing anything. I mean, you do. I mean, of course, you want to see Princess Leia in the bikini. I mean, if you're a guy and you're just or anyone, I think everyone kind of that's iconic. But it's one of those things where it's just like, what happens. There's nothing.
It gets a little. I feel like it gets a little bit long in the tooth. Mm-hmm. It's easily it's the longest of the three. I think it's about 2.5 hours. I think A New Hope's about 2 hours and 10 minutes, and Empire's like 2:15, 2:20, something like that. So it gets a little bit long in the tooth. There's some scenes that probably could have been cut out.
It's definitely a movie too, where like it might have been with like George Lucas, like, "Ooh, I've got this."
Yeah,
and maybe that's where we actually kind of see where he's going, where he thinks he himself gets a little too like, "Oh, I know how to do sci-fi. Don't you guys worry."
Yeah,
and then
we get the
not that this movie's bad. It just sounds weird. I want to point out this movie's not bad. It's still very good. Right.
Yeah. It's just I think it's like you said. I think it's the weakest of the original three. We do get the iconic line between Leia and Han, "I love you, I know." Yeah. Which is great. I think that's just so Han Solo. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Chewie teaming up with the Ewoks to take down the AT-ST. Cool. The lightsaber fights in the original trilogy just aren't that great. There's very little choreographing. The first one's between Obi-Wan and Vader, and it's between two older guys, and neither of them can really move.
Right.
So it wasn't that impressive.
That just wasn't a thing back then, unless you have Bruce Lee in a movie. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to have fight scenes were always just like kind of. It was always old guys in movies too fighting, which is just funny to me. In every movie.
So that's the thing about like these movies is that the action isn't even that great. No. You know what I mean? It's like average at best, but it's the strength of the stories that really carry them. And I think that's where they got lost with all of the other movies that have come since, because they want to do so many set pieces and so much action, and how can we outdo the last thing, and what kind of crazy lightsaber fight can we do, and what can we it's just like you lose sight of what made the original three special.
Would you say too, like, I mean, that's kind of what makes Mando so special?
Yeah, is that there's not
a ton of that. Like, it really, as much as
there's good action.
There's good action,
but it's not.
It also is what makes Rogue One and Solo good movies too. It is more like a storyline, and Rogue One has a lot of stuff, but like it's still Rogue One's very much a story. I mean,
yes,
and so is Solo. Actually, is very much a story too, and it's funny to me.
A Star Wars story.
Very much a Star Wars story. Yeah, exactly. But those, the 1, 2, and 3 just are like, hey, let's sell toys, like we've said before. And these movies, I mean, like I said, it's my least favorite of the 3, but it's still a very high number for me on this.
So as we leave the original trilogy, I'm going to read a comment here from Dwayne S. I believe is his name. Dwayne The Rock S. Firstly, he says, first off, episodes 7, 8, and 9 don't count as Star Wars movies. They're just really expensive fan fiction. I'm saying what we are all thinking. And so with that, I'm going to lead in to episode 7, The Force Awakens. This is the first Disney movie. Your main characters here are Rey, Kylo Ren, Poe Dameron, Finn, Han Solo, Chewbacca, Leia, Supreme Leader Snoke, General Hux, Captain Phasma, Maz Kanata. The main droid here is BB-8, and then I threw a special thing in there, but I'll get to that. So those are the main characters, and basically we find, our heroes, what is it, like 25 years, 20 years, 30 years? How much longer does Force Awaken
let me double check.
take place?
30, it is 30. You're right, it is 30. Yeah, 30 years.
30 years later. And The New Order is now in charge of the galaxy, and the rebellion has switched to the Resistance. And we don't get a lot of context for that as to how that happened over the course of that time throughout the film. As I think it was Dan M. wrote in saying that A New Hope and Force Awakens are the same movie. It is, in many respects, plot points are very similar. You have this essentially nobody who gets forced into this situation, no pun intended. You have a base that is able to annihilate planets, and they have to figure out a way to destroy it. And so there's some other wrinkles in there, obviously, that make it differently. Kylo Ren is Ben Solo. He's the son of Han Solo and Leia. He's obsessed with Darth Vader. Finn is he's a traitor. He's a turncoat stormtrooper who escapes the New Order. General Hux, who's kind of competing for the approval of Supreme Leader Snoke with Kylo Ren. It's almost a Tarkin Vader situation, but except whereas Vader and Tarkin seem to be on the same page, or at least in the same book, Hux and Kylo Ren are sort of competing with each other. Captain Phasma, she's played by the woman who plays Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones. I thought that whole character was really lame. I think that they were trying to do almost like a Boba Fett.
Yeah, they're
thing
definitely trying to
make
Fett.
that
Yeah.
character like badass or whatever, but it just didn't work for me. And that's why I actually put the other character. This turned into a meme. It was after the fight in the cantina, or it was during the fight after they were at the cantina, where one of the stormtroopers yells "traitor" at Finn, and they started fighting. And it was like that stormtrooper was cooler than Captain Phasma, and they gave him the designation codename TR-8R, traitor.
Yeah.
So, and he had like the spinny,
Yeah, that was cool.
like nightstick or whatever. I hated Captain Phasma. I'm happy they killed her in the second movie. I just thought that whole character was stupid. Maz Kanata was played by Lupita
Nyong'o.
There you go. Thank you. And that character was, I think that was like the surrogate, almost like the Yoda. I don't want to say, because obviously she's not a Jedi, but like she just has that information.
Right.
You know what I mean? She's got intel, basically, almost maybe even one of the droids. But at the heart of this, you have Rey, who's really being forced down your throat as the main character from the jump, and she's just not that interesting. And Daisy Ridley's fine. And then Kylo, I actually really like Kylo Ren. I think as a character, he's very interesting. I mean, obviously he's super emo, and that gets made fun of pretty well. Some of the Saturday Night Live skits that they did were great, but I just like how he's juxtaposed with Vader, whereas like Vader's this very hulking, slow moving menace. Kylo moves, he's very slim, he's tall and lanky. He moves almost like hauntingly, like almost like an animal, like a werewolf stalking someone, just the way he moves. And the helmet is whatever, but his lightsaber's cool looking, even though functionally it wouldn't work. The little side things that come out would cut his hand off while he was fighting. But I really like Kylo Ren, and I thought, based on the trailers that we got for this movie, where he's basically worshiping the mangled, burnt up, melted helmet of Darth Vader, that we were going to go in a different direction, where he's almost like the leader of this almost like cult.
Yeah. Like
a Vader cult, or like almost a religion worshiping Darth Vader, because you don't really know. Nobody was in the room when it happened. That saying, I want to be in the room when it happened. Nobody's in the room when it happens when Vader kills the Emperor and Luke rescues him. For all we know, Luke killed Vader. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it could have been, they could have won a lot of different ways with this over the course of these three movies, and they didn't. They played it safe, and they kind of played it by the numbers. And obviously, we'll talk about it when we get to the Rise of Skywalker, who the main bad guy behind everything, pulling all the strings are. But this movie is perfectly fine.
Right.
They could have gone in a really positive direction after this. But I think the biggest mistake that was made was that J.J. Abrams directed this. Ryan Johnson directed the second one, The Last Jedi, and then J.J. had to come in and direct the third one. And there's no consistent through line. And there's almost like one hand doesn't know what the other one's doing, and they didn't have a plan for this from the jump. It was almost like they made the first one, and then they made the second one, and then they made the third one. Really, what they should have done was plan 1 through 3, right. And this is how it's going to happen.
It's like our idea where George Lucas might have just had one thought for 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
Instead of, it is a thing because he's like going back, and these 3 were the ones I watched actually the most recently, because we watched them in order and everything. And I watched this one, and I got done with it. I was like, The Force Awakens is still good to me. Like, I'm not annoyed with. There's nothing to me where it's like, yeah, it is very much like A New Hope. I understand that, but it's like, okay, it's kind of like, it's making a remake without making a remake. And we want to introduce new characters. My biggest problem that I've had with the movies after this, so subsequent 2 and 3 or 8 and 9, Harry, is we really like Finn and we really like Poe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And we really like Kylo Ren. I think this is one of those things, and this is not, it has nothing to do with, like, it's not Daisy Ridley's fault.
No.
It's just one of those things, like, she's good at what she's supposed to be doing as that character.
Right.
It's just that, like, it's so much of that character when we actually like other characters. It's like, we got, in 4, 5, and 6, people really like Han Solo. We get a lot of Han Solo. People really like Leia.
Yeah.
We get a lot of Leia. Luke Skywalker is the main protagonist of all these things, but the camera is shared.
Yeah.
Because people like certain characters, and it's just like, Poe's one of the coolest characters in all of these movies. So is, like, Finn's a cool character. He's a traitor. That's cool. Like, and yet we, with this movie, it's just, for me, it was just like, it set me up in a way that A New Hope set me up for, like, great things. This movie is, like, good enough where I'm like, ooh, we might be heading into a cool direction here. And then we aren't. And it doesn't lessen that movie. It doesn't lessen this movie for me anymore. I always kind of feel the same way where I'm like, boy, this was a good movie. But the biggest difference when I leave it is like, what could have been?
Yeah.
Because nothing's going to be 4, 5, and 6. I think that's one thing, too, we have to always think about. Nothing is ever going to be 4, 5, and 6. As good as these could have been, they're not going to be 4, 5, and 6.
I think that with this movie, is impossible to talk about without talking about the next 2.
Right.
Which we're going to do, so that's handy. I think this movie didn't give us enough Poe, and then they almost went overboard in the second movie with him. And I think that they were like, well, people didn't react as strongly to Finn as we would have thought, so we're going to regulate him to background noise the rest of the way through. And I think that was dumb.
Yep.
And I know that John Boyega has come out and said, basically, they sold him as, you're going to be one of the 3 new main characters. Almost like, as you said, in the original trilogy, the 3 main characters were really Luke, Han, and Leia. And I think they sold him on, you're going to be one of these guys. And then he came out and said it was a race thing or whatever, that they regulated him to fifth fiddle, essentially. But, and I don't know if that's, I'm not going to speak on that, but I think that if they really wanted to, Finn could have been a special character. Yeah. Because the whole angle of being a traitor stormtrooper is so original for this. Yep. They had, like, there was like the pilot that defected from the Empire in Rogue One, but to make a character who's like, no, I'm going to stand up against this, or I don't believe in this, or I don't, like, that could have been the main character.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, because
I think we were too worried about Jedi. I think that was,
yes.
And I get that.
And I think that's,
I get it, but I don't, because it's like, we don't have to.
The Skywalker saga and all this.
It didn't need to be that at all. It could have been another fresh set of Star Wars where, like, and I think it does everybody service to make Rey just a third of this. I think it does everyone a better job, and even if it ends up kind of the same at the end, but if everybody kind of got equal justice, The movies are better. I'm saying that right now. 2 and 3, or I always say 2 and 3. 8 and 9
I think
are better. I mean, that's just what happens.
there's moments in this that are, we talked a little bit in the last regular episode about The Mandalorian and just that hitting that nostalgia beat. I mean, when Han and Chewie show up on the Falcon, that gives you goosebumps. The other moment that I absolutely love from this particular movie is when it's the fight outside of that cantina, and they've basically caught Rey, Finn, Chewie, and Han, and anybody else who's fighting on their side, and you see the mist kick up over the water, and the X-wings come in, and it's Poe.
Yeah.
That moment for me is like, that moment gives me chills. It gives me chills right now just talking about it.
It's really cool.
I think that's one of those moments that's just, it's so Star Wars. It's just like, I said with the Phantom Menace, the Duel of the Fates is just so Star Wars. The 30 seconds when that fight starts and is just some of the most Star Wars movies, or some of the most Star Wars scene in a Star Wars movie. And I think that moment when the X-wings come skidding across the water, or towards that fight, is just, that's one of those moments for me. Like, I'll just every now and again just cue that up on YouTube.
Yeah.
And just watch that scene. Let's get into The Last Jedi here as we continue our... Well, we got some comments. I've been skipping out on this. I apologize to our listeners.
Thanks for writing in, by the way, everyone.
Yeah, everybody that wrote in. Appreciate it. Fan of W, Force Awakens, great movie. Just don't like how uncreative it is. Oh, another planet destroying thingy. Yeah, that's pretty true. Jared L writes in, Force Awakens, Han Solo and Chewie coming back is awesome. And I kind of already covered Dan's comment about The Force Awakens. So we'll skip down to The Last Jedi. This movie sees more of Leia. Luke becomes a major focus in this movie as he's training Rey, Poe, Finn. We get Rose Tico, a very controversial character. Kylo Ren, Vice Admiral Holdo, played by Laura Dern. DJ, who's played by Benicio del Toro. We get more Captain Phasma. We see Supreme Leader Snoke, and then obviously we get Chewie and all the droids, BB-8, R2, and 3PO.
This movie...
I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Yeah, take the lead. Yeah.
No, I said
this movie is okay. I'm not going to completely crap on it. I really like the beginning of it. When I saw it the other day, I was like, ooh, okay. It's just kind of... It starts out, like, to me, like, pretty decent, and it just sort of falls off the cliff. And I just am not... And, I was interested for the third one because you're like, oh, maybe the third one's gonna... But it definitely went in a direction where I was like, this is not... It didn't even feel to me like a Star Wars movie so much as, like, other Star Wars movies. It's a... Things happen that are Star Wars related, and of course you get Luke Skywalker, but he seems so uninterested. Mark Hamill is like, he's like, in this, to me. And I don't know.
He's on the record stating he hates how they wrote him in this movie.
He acts like it. I mean, he literally acts like, what am I doing in this movie this way? Like, I'm the coolest freaking character in these movies, and you wrote me like I'm just some old schlub trying to, it just drives me nuts.
I read an article today that said that we're going to be getting, in the Mandalorian universe, we're going to be getting a lot of Luke, and it's basically going to explain why he was so curmudgeonly in The Last Jedi, and they're going to retcon it to make it like it basically it was all an act. We'll see if that ends up being the case. I hate this movie.
Oh, okay.
I hate this movie.
I can see why.
I like maybe 3 things about this movie.
I might actually only like 3 things. I just really hate the last one.
I like, we get more Oscar Isaac, Poe Dameron. But even that, even the way we get him is he's just kind of being suppressed by the administration. Yeah. He's middle management, and he's being tamped down by the upper management. The scene in which Kylo Ren and Rey team up to kill Supreme Leader Snoke, I was actually when I left the theater, I was excited for that because I said, "Oh, that's a bold decision
right.
to kill off what you think is the main bad guy in the second movie." That was very surprising to me. You get the forced connection that they can see each other from wherever,
Yeah.
which is fine. And then the the only other thing that I really like, and I only like it because it's Luke and it's Mark Hamill, is when they fire everything they have at him at the very end of the movie, and then he steps out, and he like kind of looked like Chuck Norris in that scene to me.
Yeah, of course he does.
His beard's a little bit darker. It's a little bit darker brown. He steps out and he just brushes his shoulder off. Like, I thought that was hilarious.
I loved it.
But other than that, I hate this movie.
So you and I both literally said,
was.
Oh, I was saying you picked the same things that I liked. I just didn't hate it as much because the last one happened.
Yeah. I hated this movie minus those couple parts. I hated this movie almost from the beginning when I went to see it, because the beginning is when, you know, Rey lands, she finds him. It's left on a cliffhanger because we see it at the end of Force Awakens. She finds him on this this isolated planet or whatever. She hands him his lightsaber and he throws it over his shoulder. He like looks at it and throws it over his shoulder. And I was like, "Ooh, I don't like that." And then just everything after that. I mean, drinking milk from the alien. I didn't like that. The casino planet was a complete waste of time.
I mean,
we had Finn, who's, as I said, is an actual interesting character, and he's given this bullshit side quest that ends up being all for naught because DJ Benicio del Toro's character sells him out to the Empire, or the first order, whatever the hell they're called. His character was really annoying to me, although he did kind of show that sort of the good and the bad of both sides,
right?
You know,
and I think that was probably the point.
Yeah, sure. The ship they commandeered to escape was owned by an arms dealer, and that arms dealer was selling to the First Order and the Resistance. Yeah, nothing to me about this movie is good. I hate this movie. I hate it.
So what happens is that's going to be what I say with the next one.
Well, I'm going to say it also.
Okay, because like I'm going to say it even.
I'm going to say it even more.
Right.
Forcefully.
Okay. So much force. Because I really went into the third one having really left the second one with like, I mean, here's
what I don't understand. This is what I don't understand. I want to stick with this for a second. Give me half a tick.
Sure.
So Star Wars Episode 8, the Last Jedi, has an 84 on Metacritic.
Yeah.
Critical score. Has a 4.3 user score. Explain to me, and this isn't like, I don't think this is like a case where this movie got review bombed, as I've seen pretty recently with like some different video games and stuff like that. How could the critics get this movie so wrong?
It's 90% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It was almost universally.
It's 90% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That doesn't make sense to me.
No.
I want to look at what some of the. I'm just going to read a few of the. Like, it's a Metacritic must see.
It's not that.
It's.
Can I just bring something? I watched both of these movies, 8 and 9, at the same time. I had one on my phone.
You watched them on two different
I watched one on my
TV
phone and
at the
watched
same time?
the other one on my TV. Because I was like, that's as much attention you deserve.
Okay.
You deserve the minimal amount of my attention from the social network. You're like,
I just want to read some of these like blurb synopsis. The Guardian. The Last Jedi is the first post-Lucas Star Wars film that feels free to dance to its own beat.
woof, what a terrible beat to dance to.
Yeah.
I
think that's the. Oh man. Sure, it's just a space western, but Star Wars is one of our most popular modern. Johnson respects that.
What?
Yeah.
Well, I almost feel like these reviews were reviews that like someone
Roger.
didn't see it.
This is from RogerEbert.com. Writer director Rian Johnson's Star Wars: The Last Jedi is this. These are 10 out of 10s. The Last Jedi is a sprawling incident It is an
It
incident.
is
all
certainly
right.
an incident.
And a character-packed extravaganza that picks up at the end of Star Wars Force Awakens and guides the series into unfamiliar territory. It's everything a fan could want. Here's my question is, IGN, Star Wars The Last Jedi is the quintessential Star Wars movie. It embraces everything in the franchise that came before while taking big risks to push the story into new and unexpected places.
No.
IndieWire.
Why would you say
Time magazine. No matter how much money has been poured into a movie, it's emotional generosity that matters, and Johnson gives without squandering. His greatest gift is he knows when to stop. I think he should have stopped before he started, but that's just me.
The hell was any of that? It's like, did these people even see 4, 5, and 6? That's like the one thing I actually want to know.
No.
Like, did you watch? Have you seen Empire Strikes Back? Calling this the
Rolling Stone magazine.
what?
88 out of 100. The Star Wars universe is the best toy box a fanboy could ever wish for, and Johnson makes sure the Jedi is bursting at the seams with knockout fun surprises, marvelous adventure, and shocking revelations that will leave your head spinning. Yeah, like The Exorcist with vomit coming out of my mouth.
This was like, it makes me feel worse.
I don't understand how...
You just made me feel worse. Because
I don't understand how they could get it so wrong.
So wrong.
Because, like, it showed... Like, just how they treated Luke showed a complete lack of respect.
He's the
for
most
the
important
trilogy.
character in science fiction history. And he's just kind of like, he's a joke in this movie.
Yes. I think that...
Oh, my God.
The lack of respect that they showed Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi is abysmal. I don't think Rian Johnson should be allowed on a soundstage for the rest of his life.
Amen. He shouldn't be allowed to watch other Star Wars movies, just the one he made.
They were going to give him his own trilogy.
That's insane. That's insane. I know. He should only have to watch this one. Like, that's the only Star Wars
What else
movie.
is this clown? What's this clown done? That Rian Johnson, American filmographer. Let's check his filmography. Let's see what
It
he's
just
all
becomes a
about.
Ryan Johnson hate show, which I'm about.
Oh, he did not. He did Knives Out.
He did do Knives Out, which is great.
Yeah.
Also not sci-fi. And not Star Wars.
Knives Out 2. That better not be a thing. Knives Out 2.
That
I
can't
make a sequel
work.
out of that movie.
Doesn't make sense. Please don't do that.
Maybe unless it's another family.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the only way that can work. But somehow Chris Evans is still involved. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, sure. Here's a way to contact his agent. I'd like to contact his agent.
You should contact his agent.
I have
See if we
some-
can get him on the show.
I have some things to say.
And then we just
yeah,
really-
defend yourself, sir. Knives Out 2. Yeah, that's a thing.
That's too bad.
He did a couple Breaking Bad episodes, including Ozymandias, which is like the best Breaking Bad episode.
Here's the thing. He maybe just never watched Star Wars.
That's maybe. I don't know. Not a ton, other than he's got 15 directorial credits, and really the first thing that I've heard of, he did Looper, if you remember that.
I remember Looper. Yeah.
He did Looper. He did 3 episodes of Breaking Bad, and then they handed him the keys to the most important science fiction.
Isn't it? I wonder why they decided
franchise
that he
ever.
deserved it.
I don't know.
Here's a question
Knives
before
Out.
I'm okay if they never do another trilogy, but they're gonna do another trilogy. We just know.
Yeah, they're gonna.
Who would you
they're gonna
like
do
to
more.
see of current directors?
John Favreau.
Okay.
Jon
It's
Favreau
like I
should
wanted to
do
make sure
all
we were
Star
on the
Wars.
same page.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
Dave Filoni.
Yeah. That's what I figured we were
Jon
on the same
Favreau.
page, but because of our
Quentin Tarantino.
Christopher Nolan, then we just have no idea what's happening. But it looked cool.
Tarantino was going to do a Star Trek movie.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know if he still is.
Well, he has one
that
movie
would've been
left.
different.
He has one movie left.
And he was going to do Star Trek.
I don't know. That'd be great.
I don't
I'd
know.
be down. Tarantino's the man.
I hate The Last Jedi.
I hate this
let's take
movie
some-
coming up. I
Well, let's
didn't
take
realize how
some
much I hated
listener-
it until I actually rewatched it. But
Why? Here's the thing, and this is the question. So Vice Admiral Holdo turns around the ship, shoots it into light space, and that takes down the Star Destroyer or whatever the ship that is chasing them. It just cuts it in half. Right?
Yeah.
They didn't think about that when there was 2 fucking Death Stars running around? I'm just saying. All right, we're going to take some of these listener comments about The Last Jedi, and then we will get into the last movie that we have to discuss, if you want to call it a movie. Jared L., The Last Jedi, Kylo Ren, and Rey taking out Snoke is an awesome scene. Savannah W. Canto Bite can be skipped. That's the casino planet. Flip the table on expectations. Still confused by how the drawn out chase scene works. And Dan M. Hard left, not bad, but not followed up on either. No, I mean, and let's just jump in to The Rise of Skywalker. J.J. Abrams took back over the franchise from Rian Johnson and basically retcon all of what Rian Johnson did with The Last Jedi. And this was a movie that was made.
And that's basically the beginning and
end.
And it happened. I've seen it. Ugh.
Yeah, let's get into the characters here. Luke, Leia, very briefly. This was obviously Carrie Fisher passed away between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. She they probably should have just used the opportunity to have her pass away in The Last Jedi, but instead, and this is obviously just going back to The Last Jedi, and this is another thing that I hate about it, as she's blasted into the vacuum of space, she somehow turns into fucking Superman and flies back to the ship and is somehow miraculously saved, only to later be killed off screen. Dumb.
So dumb.
Just, I don't want to. Okay. Rise of Skywalker. Leia, Luke as a Force ghost, Rey, Poe, Finn, Rose, Kylo Ren, Vice Admiral. No, she's not in. Vice Admiral Holdo died in the Holdo maneuver, which was bullshit. Lando makes his much awaited return to the franchise. Babu Frick, who was
Babu
awesome,
Frick was great.
The little guy.
Yeah, Babu Frick's awesome.
Yeah, the little guy.
He's amazing.
Babu Frick was awesome. We get General Pride, and here's the thing is like, and this is what I hate about this movie. One of the things that I hate about this movie. You get General Pride. The end credits was the best part. General Pride, Jannah, and Zori Bliss. It's the third movie. It's supposed to be the end. Why are we introducing all these new characters?
Right.
Like, we give all of a sudden now Poe has this, like, maybe she is, maybe she isn't love interest. We give Finn was supposed to be in love with Rey, and then he was kind of had a thing with Rose, and now he's with this Jannah who was on this planet with a bunch of other deserted stormtroopers, and that was really cool, like, on paper. Like, I would say this is the first movie that if you would have showed me the script for this and said on paper, this is what we're doing, I would have laughed at it.
Oh,
like,
sure,
even
sure,
The Last Jedi on paper had some redeeming
on paper
aspects.
Yeah. This is a disaster.
The Palpatine thing. Why? Why is this a thing? And here's the other thing, and we talked about this in part 1. I don't understand why. I'm going to read you. Here's the thing. Okay. Rise of Skywalker. Opening crawl. I'm going to read you the opening crawl from The Rise of Skywalker. Okay? I'm going to do that. Rise of Skywalker. The dead speak. The galaxy heard a mysterious broadcast, a threat of revenge, and the sinister voice of the late Emperor Palpatine. When did that happen?
Right.
I didn't hear it. Did you hear
I never
it?
heard it.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
General Leia Organa dispatches secret agents to gather intelligence while Rey, the last hope of the Jedi, trains for battle against the diabolical First Order. Meanwhile, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren rages in search of the Phantom Emperor, determined to destroy any threat to his power. When did we hear this?
We never heard any of it. It's because J.J. Abrams like, I didn't like the second one. And
a mysterious broadcast in the voice of the late Emperor. When did that? Oh, it's in Fortnite. Apparently.
Oh yeah, well
That
Fortnite,
makes
yeah,
sense.
Fortnite and Star Wars are the same galaxy. I get that. Okay, well this all makes sense now.
When, like seriously, that's when you hear it.
Is the crawl?
I'm reading this article. The opening crawl of Rise of Skywalker lets you know right off the bat that Emperor Palpatine, long thought dead, is actually alive and wreaking havoc on the galaxy once again. How is he doing this? Well, there has been a mysterious broadcast that has been heard by the heroes and villains of the galaxies far, far away that has alerted everyone to Palpatine's return. But what did the message say? We'll never find out. What?
This is why I hate this movie.
How is that an option?
I was so mad.
How is that an option?
When the scroll came and it said Palpatine, I literally remember giving out audible, huh? Like,
So,
where are we going?
first of all, let's talk about how this is possible. Just strap yourself in. We're going for a ride. At the end of the Return of the Jedi, this is allegedly canon. At the end of Return of the Jedi, as he is being hurtled down the reactor shaft, he transfers his consciousness to a clone, because apparently he'd been assuming at some point that somebody was going to off him, or that he may lose, and he'd been making clones and studying the ways of the Force to transfer consciousness.
Sure.
Fuck
Everything. Right. It's just like, it literally, it is just like, it's basically just getting it out. You're just like, oh, this is...
They didn't know. This is what it was. This is 100% what it was that they didn't know what to do. Rian Johnson made a bold move, which I give him credit for. A bold move of killing the main bad guy in the second movie. So now who's the main bad guy going to be? Well, we could create somebody new, or I got it. Let's just make it the guy who's always the bad guy.
Yep.
That's original. That's real. Took a lot of thought.
What?
I don't understand how anybody in any position of power greenlit this thing. Like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Money. It still made a lot of money. That's the reason. That's literally the reason.
It made a lot of money because it's Star Wars.
Right, and that's literally the
People
only
are
reason.
gonna go see
That's
Star
it, though.
Wars.
Like, that's...
But I'm pretty sure
It's so stupid.
I'm pretty sure
this
it was
movie's
considered
stupid. This movie drives me nuts. It was...
I'm pretty sure it was considered a box office
It cost
failure.
$275 million to make.
Or it was a moderate. They said it was a moderate. Well, it made over $1 billion.
So it made more than 3 times it cost.
But here's the thing.
Audience score is 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. Get the fuck out of here. It was a 51% tomato reading, but what the fuck? It's not good.
I think the reason why it did well with like the general public in terms of, because it's flipped from The Last Jedi, because on Metacritic it's a 53 critical and 4.7 user score. But I think a lot of people liked it just because it deleted a lot of what The Last Jedi did.
Sure.
It's just not what I would call good in many ways.
Probably all the ways.
Actually, in any way, honestly, if I'm being honest.
I don't like this movie.
There's nothing about this movie that's redeeming. There's not a single scene in this movie that's redeeming. Not a single scene.
The
and
ending.
I'm going to tell you, all of the end credits.
Because you're done.
But
you're like, oh, good.
I can't. Babu Frick.
Oh yeah, Babu Fricks are great.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. That's the only redeemable part of this movie. This was the movie, even the Knights of Ren that were supposed to be awesome,
Right.
weren't. And we got Han came back. I forgot to mention that Han came back and basically had the same exact scene that he had with Kylo at the end of The Force Awakens. The kiss was weird.
Super weird.
The Emperor itself is the scene where that I actually got upset when I saw this was it was almost like they tried to recreate the cap on your left scene from Avengers Endgame when Poe's flying under the Star Destroyer and he's like, oh, we're never going to win. And then Lando cuts in and he's like, but you've got all of us. And then we see Wedge for like a half a second and it's just like all of a sudden there's all these people. It's like, I didn't like that. I just don't like this movie. I just don't like this movie.
It's
and,
not...
you know, why does she say her name's Skywalker at the end? Her name's not Skywalker. Her name's Palpatine, apparently.
Yeah, like, I mean, what's funny is, like, we're talking about the way we should be talking about it. Like, we don't have things to actually say about the movie just because, like, nothing happens and it's bad and the kiss is weird and she says Skywalker doesn't make any sense.
This had so many, and this was one of the comments, I think it was Dan, called it MacGuffin the movie.
Sure.
Because that's what it was. There was just all these like objects that had to move the plot forward, and you know they're on this planet, and it's basically looks just like Tatooine, and you know they killed Chewie, but we all know they didn't kill Chewie. I will say one of the cool things was that, and I think this happened. Did this happen at the end of The Last Jedi, or was it The Rise of Skywalker, where Leia finally gave Chewie the medal that he didn't get in A New Hope? That was cool. I did like that. You know, we knew that 3PO wasn't going to completely lose his whole memory. There wasn't, you know, it wasn't. I don't know, man. It's
not good.
It's just it was just such a disappointment. But here's the thing is, in so many respects, it actually wasn't a disappointment because I expected it to be bad. I just expected it to be bad. And I think it was because that they had these characters who were in The Force Awakens that were new and potentially cool. And then in The Last Jedi, none of them were cool.
Yeah.
You know, they wasted Finn. Poe was fine throughout. Rey is just not an interesting character. And like I said, it doesn't have anything to do with Daisy Ridley or that she's a woman lead character. She just wasn't interesting.
No.
She wasn't interesting.
Because the one thing, what I've said is, like, if this was a man playing this, I'm still not interested in this character.
No.
I mean, like, there's nothing.
Maybe even less so.
And so, like, there's nothing about this is like, oh, no, it's just not well done. How about that?
No. Yeah. I even think that Kylo Ren was underserved.
Oh,
I
sure.
think he could have been.
I mean, Kylo Ren's awesome
a more
as like an
interesting
actual character, and then they just kind of like, oh, you're gonna kiss at the end, and then you die, and that's bad.
Yeah. I mean,
and the way he dies is so bad.
I think. You know what? Do you know what would have made this actually? Let me rewrite these movies for you real quick. Let's do that. So let's start with The Force Awakens, and I'm actually going to leave The Force Awakens pretty much as is. The Last Jedi, here's what they should have done, in my opinion, in my most humble of opinions, right? Is almost the same up until Rey leaves.
Yes.
Luke, okay? And then I'm going to delete everything that happened after
Yes.
that. And given the opportunity, this is how I think they make this a more interesting storyline. Is Rey turns bad.
Yeah.
Rey becomes the bad guy.
That'd be awesome.
And in The Rise of Skywalker, the Skywalker in question that's rising is actually Kylo Ren. And he redeems himself and defeats Rey.
Yeah.
Or here, I'm even going to be, I know this was, I'm not the first person by any means to say this, but what if Luke was the bad guy for these three movies?
That'd been cool.
Anything
other than what happened.
Paint drying would have been cooler than The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, literally anything that didn't happen in this movie would have been better. That's really sad, but that's
I just, it's such a, we opened the show with A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and The Return of the Jedi, and then,
Hey, we went
We have
just
to close it on a sour
we went
note.
just the way these movies went.
Yeah.
Awesome to bad.
Something like that. All right, so I'm gonna read everybody who submitted rankings. We got some people who just sent us in rankings, so there's gonna be a couple others, other than the people who, and then we'll give our own. So Jared L's rankings are number 1, Rogue One, number 2, Solo, number 3, A New Hope, number 4, Empire Strikes Back, number 5, Return of the Jedi, number 6, Revenge of the Sith, number 7, Attack of the Clones, number 8, Phantom Menace, number 9, Force Awakens, 10, The Last Jedi, 11, The Rise of Skywalker. He did say that the best part of The Rise of Skywalker was the credits, so we're with you on that. Savannah W, number 1, Empire Strikes Back, number 2, The Last Jedi, number 3, A New Hope, number 4, The Force Awakens, number 5, Rogue One, number 6, Return of the Jedi, number 7, Phantom Menace, number 8, The Rise of Skywalker, number 9, Solo, number 8, Revenge of the Sith, number 10, Revenge of the Sith, I can't count, and number 11, The Clone Wars. Dan M, number 1, Return of the Jedi, number 2, Empire, number 3, A New Hope, and Force Awakens. So I guess that's 3 and 4. Number 5, Phantom Menace, 6, Rogue One, 7, Solo, 8, Last Jedi, 9, Attack of the Clones, 10, Revenge of the Sith, and 11, Rise of Skywalker. Robert Sacamano himself. Number 1, Return of the Jedi. Number 2, A New Hope. Number 3, Empire Strikes Back. His Empire is 3. Number 4, Force Awakens. Number 5, Revenge of the Sith. Number 6, The Last Jedi. Number 7, Phantom Menace. Number 8, Attack of the Clones. Number 9, Rise of Skywalker. He did not include Rogue One and Solo. And then my boy didn't write in, but he just randomly put this on Twitter the other day, so I thought I'd pluck it off this. So this is Colin Moriarty's Star Wars ranking. Number 1, Empire. Number 2, Rogue One. Number 3, Return of the Jedi. Number 4, A New Hope. Number 5, Solo, A Star Wars Story. Number 6, The Force Awakens. He notes that the rest are at least 1 parsec away.
Fair.
Number 7, Rise of Skywalker. Number 8, Phantom Menace. Number 9, Revenge of the Sith. Number 10, The Last Jedi. And number 11, Attack of the Clones. So to cap things off, we're going to give you our lists. So if you have yours up, you can go ahead, because I have to get mine.
So I'm going to just, obviously, I'm going to go, should I go 1 to 11 or 11 to 1? How are you doing yours?
That's up to you. I'm gonna
go 11 to 1.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Attack of the Clones, just disaster of a movie. I'm sorry. I hate that movie so much. Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace, Rise of Skywalker, The Last Jedi, Rogue One, Force Awakens. This was shocking to me where I ended up with this one. I ended up having Solo as my 4th favorite Star Wars movie. And I think it well deserves it. I think it actually deserves it. And then Return of the Jedi, New Hope, and Empire Strikes Back.
Okay. So for me, I'll do the same. I'll go in reverse order. Number 11 is The Rise of Skywalker.
I love it.
As I've noted,
I'm here for that.
I hate that movie.
So here for it.
I hate that movie so much. I feel like even The Last Jedi, the more I watch it, I like warm up to it. I mean, granted, it's not like sticking something in the microwave and putting it in there for a minute and a half and all of a sudden it's warm. It's like, taking a frozen 12-pound turkey out of the freezer and leaving it in the refrigerator to thaw.
Sure.
Over the course of like a month.
Yeah.
Like that's the rate that I'm warming up to it. But I'm warming up to it. But anyway, number 11, Rise of Skywalker. Number 10, Attack of the Clones. Number 9, Revenge of the Sith. Number 8, The Last Jedi. And I'm going to be honest with you, those bottom 4, well, no, the bottom one is the bottom one, Rise of Skywalker, but
I love how much you hate it.
8, 9, and 10, yeah, no, it's just, I think when I went and saw it, I just angrily shook my head the whole time. The Last Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, and Attack of the Clones are like pull a name out of a hat.
We had the exact same bottom 4, just different order.
Yeah. So 11, 10, 9, 8. 7's Phantom Menace. 6, Force Awakens. 5 is Solo. Now, this is where things are going to get slightly off kilter for me. I have 4 is Return of the Jedi. 3 is Rogue One. 2 is A New Hope. And number 1 is Empire Strikes Back. So that's my definitive list.
We're a little different, but I think we kind of I'm not surprised that you flipped Solo and Rogue One, and I think
I hold Rogue One in very, very high regard.
It's really great, and I obviously hold Solo in very high regard, and it's. I think the only other Star Wars movie I saw twice in theater of the new ones was Solo. The last three I saw.
I saw Force Awakens.
No, I did
twice.
see.
I think I saw Force Awakens.
I saw Force Awakens twice. I did.
Theaters.
Actually, because I saw it with Janie, and I saw it with
What
my
year
mom,
did it come?
and then I
Was
saw
it
it
15?
with Janie's parents.
Yeah, I saw it 3
15.
times. I saw it 3 times.
Yeah, I definitely did see it 3 times. I did see it 3 times. Yeah, I mean, I still think it's good enough. It's just. It's not better than
Force
the movies
Awakens.
I put ahead of it, and that's
100%. Well, like we said,
Yeah.
the problem with the Force Awakens is that it has to be judged congruently with The Last Jedi and the Rise of Skywalker. If those 2 movies were better,
right,
I think that people would hold Force Awakens in a little bit higher regard.
If the second and third movies were, let's say, 50% better, The Force Awakens is my third favorite Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Probably. I'm going to say it moves ahead of Return of the Jedi. But because those second and third ones...
They're dog shit.
They're just... Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They're licking their own asshole.
Sounded like a fresh pot of coffee. So, yeah, there's was the... bleh. That was
We did it. We got through this.
Breakdown. Yeah, it's going to end up both all told being about 3 hours, but... combined, so a lot of content out there for you guys.
A lot of content out there for you guys. It's all about content. Never forget.
We got a lot of content tonight. So we were talking about, just to let everybody know what the plan's going to be moving forward is. We talked about in January, our extra episode is we're going to rank our top 10 favorite action/drama movies, and then February we're going to do our top 10 favorite musicals or comedies. And then in January, or March, so long as we're all still alive, and the distinct alien races, civilizations don't come back, and the new strain of COVID doesn't get us all. We're planning on doing a panel, kind of like a panel, like an I Love the 90s panel, where we just talk about 90s stuff, and we're going to have maybe 1 or 2 guests on for that one, so that'll be fun. But that's what we got coming down the line here in the next couple months. So that was fun, and we did the Star Wars thing, which we always knew we were going to do the Star Wars thing. I'll be honest with you, I didn't think we'd do it so soon in our run, but it worked out, and I had a great time.
Yeah.
So, and maybe in a few years, if they churn out some movies, we can add to it. So, or do it again. Yeah. Maybe the Rise of Skywalker will be like, maybe it'll age like fine milk.
It probably will age like fine milk.
Yeah, just curdled and
sour and depressing.
Sour, and that it is. The BeXtraG Extra podcast. This will be on Tuesday, December 29th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So this will be on December 29th, and then the first episode of the new year will go up on either Friday or Saturday, depending on how things shake out. I should be good to have that one up on Friday. The most recent regular episode will probably have aired on Saturday, just because it is the holiday and I'm very busy, as we all are, and it was a long one, so it's going to take me. It
is a good holiday one, and plus, like, a lot of other podcasts aren't putting out a lot of content, so you have us now for content.
Yeah. We're not going to take a week off. We might push it by a day, but we're not going to take a week off. So we hope you enjoyed our ranking, our breakdown of the Star Wars movies, and my emotional breakdown regarding The Rise of Skywalker. And our definitive rankings, we appreciate everybody who wrote in, and we enjoyed talking about it. And we'll probably get back to. I'm sure we'll have plenty to say about Star Wars, both past, present, and future, moving forward. So I hope you enjoyed it. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at BXG Podcast. Facebook.com/BXG Podcast, YouTube.com/BXG Podcast. Email us, bxgpodcast@gmail.com. Hope you enjoyed your holiday. Stay safe over the new year. Tell your friends. Tell your friends. Tell your friends. Tell your family.
Tell your mothers, and may the Force be with you.
And may the Force be with you always. So long.
So long.